It was a costly win for the Cowboys in Week 14 over the Texans. What does that mean for the rest of the season? All that and more. This episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast
Locked
Network, your
On.
team every day.
On.
Locked
On.
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less in their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how are you doing on this Victory Monday?
It's kind of a bittersweet one, right?
Obviously,
we'll talk about some of the losses that the Cowboys incurred during this. But look, as far as the game goes itself, never gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. NFL wins count, and so we're thrilled about that. Just to kind of put it into further perspective here, like every team, good teams including, have stinkers. They have bad games. They just don't play well,
including your division rivals against the same exact team a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. And the good teams find a way to win those games, and the Cowboys did. So that's the bottom line there.
All right, we're going to talk about this win on both sides of the ball, why the offense struggled, why the defense couldn't get stops early. But we need to talk about the big news of the day, and that's Cowboys right tackle Terence Steele. He was injured. Was it right before halftime or right after halftime? I don't even remember now.
I kind of feel like it was right before halftime.
Right before halftime, with a knee injury. It was confirmed today that he has both an ACL and MCL tear. I saw a report from Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News that said it's very similar to the injury that Michael Gallup suffered. So obviously he's out for the rest of this season. You have to wonder if he'll be ready for week 1. It's just a brutal blow, Landon, because he was playing so well.
Yeah, the Cowboys have been kind of lucky these last few weeks and had avoided a lot of major injuries outside of obviously what they had suffered early in the season with Dak and Tyron. So, it's just unfortunate. This is a guy who, just you couldn't root for any harder. I mean, he came in as an undrafted free agent on a team filled with talent, and was the weak link his rookie year, and it was just kind of constantly put upon because of being thrown out there as an undrafted free agent and having to struggle through all that. The amount of development that this guy has done over the last 2 seasons is frankly shocking.
Yeah.
And he's developed into probably, I think Zach Martin referred to him as the best offensive lineman on the team. So it's a huge blow to the Cowboys run game. There's absolutely zero doubts about that. And a huge blow to the team overall. I think that they'll try to find a way to kind of carry on, but it's obviously a monumental loss to the Cowboys offense.
And we're going to have all off season to talk about what do the Cowboys do with him, because he's actually going into restricted free agency after this year, which complicates things even further. You've got to wonder, like, how important is offensive tackle for this team kind of going forward if he's going to potentially miss the first 6 games of the season. But what do the Cowboys do the rest of this year? I would assume it's going to be Jason Peters, correct?
I think that what we'll see is Jason Peters. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more Jason Josh Ball. Simply because that was a difficult situation for Josh Ball to go out into. I think he will potentially play better with some practice snaps going in. But I think that the point is the Cowboys are going to look at several options here. I think the problem with it was great what Jason Peters did yesterday. I have concerns about him doing it long term because he hasn't had a lot of practice there, and that obviously can lead to injury. So
before this game, he had never played more than 5 snaps at right tackle in a season since 2006. That's how long it's been since he's played right tackle.
Yeah, and I have some concerns there. I mean, I'm sure that Jason does too. And I think that whenever you're asking a guy to switch sides, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous for their health. So I it'll be interesting to see exactly how it plays out. Obviously, you feel more comfortable with Jason Peters in there, but maybe there's a way to kind of get Josh Ball better up for this game than. Look, I don't know that he played absolutely atrociously. I think he had two very, very bad snaps, which
It
had a
wasn't
huge
a
impact
Chaz
on the field.
Green level performance.
No,
certainly.
absolutely not. No. So we'll see how that develops, and maybe they kind of have a rotation situation like they
I
have
was
in
gonna say
other
that's what I
spots.
think is gonna
So
happen, to be honest.
probably,
I think you'll see Ball start these games and Peters rotate in and probably try to play
yeah,
25-ish snaps a game. And maybe the more he plays, the more comfortable he gets. The Cowboys feel like, hey, we can lean on this guy in the playoffs. But I do think it's going to be a rotation. I think we'll see both guys over there.
I agree. I think that there's not a straightforward plug and play solution here. I think it's going to be a combination of things.
Now, I will also say with Tyron Smith expected to be back either this week or next week, it does allow you to do some things where you could shift protections over to the right side, right? Because you don't think you have to help out Tyron and Tyler Smith as much over there. It's a bummer that we never got to see the full offensive line for even one game this season, right? Not even
Yeah,
one snap.
not even one snap. Yeah, it is frustrating. I was thinking about that too. You get so close. And you got so close for week one, and you got so close here to
Yeah,
seeing it, and
it's a bummer.
unfortunately, it just didn't happen.
But NFL teams have to deal with this all the time,
Yes,
right? The
absolutely.
Cowboys,
No one's crying for us. That's
right?
for sure.
The Cowboys were very fortunate that they did not have a lot of injuries on the offensive line, since week one, right after the Tyron news. They got to find a way to get through it, and they're going to have to overcome the Terence Steele injury. It's a bummer. We hate it for him because he's such a good dude and he's improved so much.
Yeah,
Gotta find ways to go get wins. Nobody's gonna feel bad for the Cowboys going
absolutely
forward.
not.
All right,
Absolutely not.
let's talk about the actual game, Landon. But before we do that, we want to let you know that this podcast is presented by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or get that luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Or if you just need to find an affordable economy car, if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B, Turo can help you out there. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. We also want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we are sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off it, we rarely know how the grind on the path to greatness goes. Russell Wilson, alongside co-host Harry Wilson and Trevor Moawad, dig into how high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders push the boundaries of their potential. You'll hear from Olympic medalists, Von Miller, and other NFL stars and business leaders. It's available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcast, available everywhere right now. Audible, get in the game. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys offense in this one. At times, Landon, they looked really good. First drive of the game, awesome. I was actually thinking of you, like, yes, the Cowboys finally got off to a great start. This is what it was supposed to look like, and then they sputtered the rest of the first half. But why was it so choppy on offense for the Cowboys in this one?
Well, I think really, they struggled on early downs at certain points, especially in the first half. It felt like they got out to a good start. They got out and they got a touchdown. They got a 3-and-out on defense. So you really can't, kind of blame this on a slow start. It felt like they started fast. Suddenly they get a 3-and-out. They the Texans punt the football. Cowboys muff the punt. Texans recover the ball in really good field position, was able to score a touchdown. And then it felt like from that point on, the Cowboys just felt a little discombobulated. And on offense specifically, I think going back and watching, I definitely want to go back and watch the all 22 and kind of get an idea what's going on there. But from what it seemed like, the Cowboys kind of just got into some bad down and distance situations, and then try to kind of dig their way out of that, which they couldn't. They got some bad results on. I mean, they were getting bad results passing and running the football on first and second down early in this game.
Yep.
Houston's defense, came out to play. I think that they were out there playing at a high level of physicality. They just go back and watch the game and see how hard they were hitting folks, and like Zeke, doesn't normally kind of go down with one hit.
He got crushed several times in this game.
A couple different times where you just saw him take absolute monster hits from these guys, and I felt like there were like 3 or 4 guys on that Texans defense who really were taking this game personally and playing at an extremely high level. I think that we could talk about some of the miscues in the passing game, but honestly, going back and watching it, it looked like there was some drops. It looked like there was a couple times. There were a couple times when their linebackers made really great plays. They were in drops and were able to get incredible ups. There was like at least 3 times when the linebacker shocked me with how well he was able to get up in the air and knock the ball, or make contact with the ball.
And that was one of my takeaways. It felt like the Texans really were trying to make the middle of the field congested, right? Like Kirksey was getting so far back into his drops and messing up some of the throwing windows. And I just wonder, like, is this the way that teams are going to defend the Cowboys going forward? Like, don't worry about the sidelines so much. We'll play man-to-man that way, because I don't know if Dak is going to throw the ball 40 yards down the sideline to beat us. If we can jam everything up in the middle and take away the stuff to CD and Schultz, we can slow down their offense.
I think that they could certainly try that. I think other teams have tried that before and had real problems doing that. To me, it seemed a lot more like Dak was just expecting, like he was expecting cover 2 and it was cover 4, or like it just seemed like there was a lot more of not seeing the linebackers do kind of deep drops and thinking that he had more space than he really did to drop the ball behind the linebackers in front of the safeties. And I mean, seriously, there were 4 plays at least where Kirksey or one of these other linebackers got up and got their hand on the ball, and it would have been an easy pitch and catch completion for Dak. There was just like a lot of kind of weird circumstance in this game. Not so much. I think, kind of watching the game, it felt like Dak was off at different points, but you go back and watch, and like he's throwing to open receivers. He's throwing to guys that even his bad throws. It's like, you think about the Schultz throw that he kind of dropped, that it was like just a little behind him, and it wasn't even like it was a terrible throw. So I just think that the Cowboys kind of got themselves into a situation where they got behind the chains on a couple of early drives after that, obviously, initial drive. Kind of struggled they kind of go 3 and out. They go and score another touchdown, but then, they have a couple different drives in a row where they're struggling to kind of make things go. They turn the ball over. And then, it gets kind of compounded by the fact that, and we'll talk about the defense in a second, it felt like the defense really kind of struggled to do the things that the defense does well and get off the field quickly to get the ball back to the Dallas offense to kind of rectify what we've seen.
The Cowboys had their chances to score a ton of points in this game, right? They got stuffed at 4th and 2 at the 2-yard line, right? Zeke just got ear hold on the play. They had, I think it was right before halftime, they had a chance. Maybe it was after halftime. The Schultz one where Schultz drops a touchdown in the end zone. They have to settle for a field goal. Like, they had their opportunities to easily score 35 points in this game. They finished with 27. They had over 400 yards of offense. Like, as bad as it felt, I mean, it really wasn't all that bad. Like, they were moving the ball a lot in this game.
Yeah, they had success. It just felt like they, got into situations where they got into the red zone, they committed a penalty or something, or they had a negative 3-yard run. They had a lot of negative plays that were not penalty related that kind of were not quite drive killers, but close to it. And some of them were drive killers. And I think that's where they struggled to overcome. And then, once Terence Steele got hurt, it kind of muddied the pocket a little bit more. And that's when you see, Dak throw the interception out of the end zone because his arm gets hit. You see, that sort of thing. So I just think that Dak's once Steele went out and for the first few kind of series while Ball was in there, it wasn't terrible, but it certainly wasn't what they were used to, and they were already kind of in a rut. So it took a little while to kind of re-steady the ship. And honestly, just the inability to kind of consistently run the football the way that they expected to at different points. The numbers look good, but there were just too many times when you were hoping that you could get your kind of an early or second down run just to get some positive yardage. There were too many times in this game where they were in like 2nd and 12 or, behind the chains early and kind of made for difficult third down situations at times.
They still had 4 drives of 60 or more yards in this game.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't play terribly. It's just obviously not as what we expected against this team. Right. And with the injuries and everything that, the context of all of what's going on with Houston.
Right. The offensive line was fine at times in this game. Early on, they looked really good. In the second half, Houston started to get a little bit of a beat on them, but it was fine. It was a weird game. The entire game just felt weird on both sides of the ball. I hate to blame it all on one person, but the Kevontae Turpin fumble on the punt felt like it changed the entire game.
And him not catching that punt later on and letting it kind of go down to the one. I thought that was also a pretty serious mistake on his part.
Just didn't play well. Just didn't play well. And you score on the first drive of the game. You get a 3 and out. You would have had great field position. He fumbles the kick, and all of a sudden it's a 7-7 game, and it feels like, here we go again. But we should give credit to the Cowboys and Dak. It would have been very easy at the end of this game just to be like, you know what? It's not our day. It happens. Let's move forward. But no, they have an awesome touchdown drive, the best drive they've had all season long. They had multiple chances to score a touchdown at the end, and they got it done. So you do have to give the offense some credit for playing a bad game, but still figuring out a way to make it not so bad at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember they played with, despite they played with really crappy field position in the second half, right? Like obviously they started out with the turnover, and then they weren't able to kind of punch it in. And then after that, they only had one drive that started on the 25 or better. The final 3 drive. Well, let's not even count that final 3 drives. That won't count obviously the Neal drive. They all started inside the 10 or better or worse. So I think that was a huge part of it. Obviously, the interception coming on in their basically in their own end zone felt like a game ender. And I think that's again why we're kind of that whole sequence of getting the ball like at the 12-yard line, then going 3 and out, then forcing a punt, and then getting the ball on our own one, throwing an interception. Like at that point, it felt like, oh God, the Cowboys are losing this game. It's over. The huge stand. We'll talk about the stand on defense. And then, the Cowboys get the ball back again, except this time on like the 2-yard line. And part of you is like, well, what's to think that this is going to be any different than last drive? And they just completely turn it on and they go 98 yards. Dak looks magnificent. The run game looks solid, and they score a touchdown like they obviously knew that they always were going to. So, it's tough when your team doesn't play consistently well, but the truth of the matter is that there is still times when this offense can just turn it on, and suddenly, if it's a 1-score game, the Cowboys are back in it and taking the lead.
We actually predicted this on Friday. If you go back and listen, we said, hey, if the Cowboys are going to be losing in this game, it's only going to be by like a field goal or 4 points, and the Cowboys will still have a chance to win it at the end. Even if they play a really crappy game, they're still going to have a chance because of all their talent. That's exactly the way that it played out. So kudos to the offense for figuring it out at the end. Let's talk about the defense, because the defense had a very interesting day. But before we do that, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than the Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, Prize Picks will give you 100. You deposit 50, they'll give you 50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys defense in this game. The Texans ran for 114 yards on 37 carries. Dameon Pierce, 22 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. But if you remove his one long run, which was a 24-yarder, he had 21 carries for 54 yards, averaged 2.5 yards a carry. The Cowboys stopped the run, and they almost lost this game.
I mean, honestly, let's not take the 24 yards out. Even with the 24 yards, Dameon Pierce was 22 for 78 with 3.5 yards per carry. I'll take it, man.
As a team, they ran for 3.1 yards per carry.
That's not great. That's exactly what you're looking for in this game, and that is honestly, that meets all the marks you want. Like, I saw a lot of people complaining about like how the Cowboys can't stop a running quarterback. Driscoll had 36 yards total. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like they were absolutely killing
on
us
7 carries. It's not like, if he did it on 2 carries, it's a little different.
And let's also keep in mind that like the reason that even it was that effective is because they pulled this 2 quarterback situation completely out of thin air. This was fully made for the Cowboys. So that was, I think, part of the element of the offense, and I think the defense that we need to account for is that Houston played this game like it was their Super Bowl, in the sense that they completely changed their offense, they completely changed their defense in order to try to beat the Cowboys, and they were playing completely differently than in anything you've seen on tape.
Which is good coaching, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also like, this wasn't, like you just lined up a bad team versus a good team and faced off. Like, they were throwing out all the stops. And at certain points, it was working. I think the one thing that I would take away from the defensive performance that is concerning is that it just felt like the Cowboys were unable to get any kind of pressure on the quarterback at all. And I understand that a lot of it was screens, a lot of it was quick passes, a lot of it was obviously attempts to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly. But on the plays where they were dropping back to throw the ball, there were just too many times when Mills had too much time back there to throw the ball in clean pockets. We got no sacks in that game yesterday, I'm pretty sure, total.
No.
And not a ton of QB hits. So, and I think that is where the Cowboys really ran into problems, because the big plays that they were able to make in the passing game, it's because Mills was able to sit back there all day and wait for somebody to get open or throw the ball down the field. So that's where I have the most concerns, and that's where I feel like the Cowboys defense kind of still needs to obviously play better football than they did last week or last Sunday.
They got 1 QB hit, and it was on the final play of the game. The Hail Mary on Dorrance Armstrong forced it, who ended up getting hurt on that play. He rolled his ankle wearing a boot. That was it. That was the only QB hit they had. Micah Parsons, almost invisible in this game, didn't do a lot. The one guy, though, we need to talk about, because he saved this game, is DeMarcus Lawrence. Right?
Yeah.
Just doesn't get enough credit for how well he played in this game. He had 5 stops in this game, including maybe one of the most important of his career.
Yes.
On a 3rd down play, he knifes in, not only does he make the tackle, but he makes a tackle for like a loss of like 2 yards. So now, instead of it being 4th and goal at the 1 foot yard, it's like 4th and goal at the 2.5 yard line. That changes up the play that Houston has to do on 4th down, and the Cowboys get the stop. Lawrence has done this several times this year at the goal line, made a big stop, and the Cowboys end up stopping the opponent. It's truly remarkable how good he's been this year.
Yeah, and that's why, again, like we talked about how if it's a one-score game, the Cowboys are probably going to find a way to win this game because they have playmakers who, at the moments you need them, they show up, and they make plays like that. And obviously the Cowboys had some on defense and they had some on offense as well, and they needed both. They needed, considering where they were previous to that, having just thrown an interception, having just given the ball away basically inside their own red zone. They needed a big play from the defense to get the ball back in without giving up a score, which was incredible, and they needed a play from their offense to go that distance. So, it's tough to kind of feel so. I mean, it's not tough, but it's just crazy to feel so much one way about this team for 58 minutes of this game, and then suddenly to see what they did, for 4 downs of defense, and then for 98 yards on offense, it really just shows you just exactly how talented this team is. It honestly, it reminded me of like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, kind of playing like crap for 58 minutes, and then hold on, let me just go win the game real quick.
Yeah. I want to give some credit to the defensive tackles. I thought they all played pretty well.
Yeah.
Ohana, Carlos Watkins, even Hankins before he got hurt. Also, Digizua. Those guys all played so well.
Gallimore played maybe his best game of the season, as far as I'm concerned. He had that pass deflection on a big second down that got us to third down, and then he's the one who made that fourth down tackle on that same goal line stand. So. Yeah, I agree. I thought that Hankins, before he got hurt, Watkins continues to show you that he's a valuable member of this team, right?
And the Cowboys made the right decision keeping him over Tristan Hill.
And I think, yeah, obviously Odigizua had a nice game, had a sack that got called back because of an offsides penalty. I don't really understand how that happened, but yeah, and then obviously I think there was just a lot of other kind of key defensive contributions at key moments that were really big. I mean, obviously you talked about the defense tackles, but I thought Deron Bland had a really good game. I thought the linebacker, I thought Leighton Vander Esch had, I don't know, 200 tackles in this game or something like that.
Best game I've seen Vander Esch play in several years, I think.
So yeah, the linebackers I think have started to play really good football, and you can see that in kind of the rushing totals, especially. But yeah, I thought that some of the key players that we weren't exactly sure. Look, we talked about how the interior of this offensive line was something that could be exposed. Kenyon Green got injured, I think, early in this game. I'm not sure that he ever came back.
He did come back for a little bit. Yep.
He did. Okay. You weren't really sure exactly how the Cowboys were going to find a way to exploit. We thought maybe it would be lots of stunts going inside, but to have the defensive tackles take care of business themselves, that works for me. And really, especially in this kind of game, they were able to control the line of scrimmage, and it made a huge difference in the run game specifically.
We're going to have all week to look at the film and talk about some of our biggest takeaways, but feels like Kelvin Joseph is on the Chidobe Awuzie track, where you have just awesome coverage, but guys continue to make ridiculous catches over and over again. I don't get it.
Can we talk about that one? Was that a catch to you?
No,
it wasn't a catch to me. I don't really understand how it was a catch.
Even Dean Blandino, noted Cowboy hater, says he was shocked that they didn't overturn that.
I gotta say, because that ball hit the ground, like he never had like and on the flip side of that, like how, and again, this is now 2 weeks where I don't understand the rules of catching the football in the end zone. How was Michael Gallup's not a touchdown?
Because they said he didn't get his other foot down, but he got his butt down, which is supposed to equal 2 feet. But
it felt like that was
to know anymore. I don't.
It felt like that was a keep it close call. I felt like both of them were keep it close calls in my opinion. But what do I know? But yeah, it was. I mean, look, let's talk about Kelvin Joseph real quick before we go. I do think that he gave up the one big play that questionable. And then he obviously had a huge pass deflection later. I thought overall he played fine. I mean, honestly, if we're using Anthony Brown as the standard, I think he played at a level of Anthony Brown.
I don't think there was like several deviations away from what Brown has played, right?
No, absolutely not. Like, so I think that you can live with that level of play from Kelvin Joseph. He's not going to actually get you murdered. So, if that's what we're going to get each week for the rest of the time from Kelvin Joseph, we're going to be okay, at least on that front.
Yeah, I agree. We need to have a conversation about Anthony Barr. Not today, but maybe tomorrow, because he was not great this game, at least in my opinion. We'll talk about.
I mean, Bland's the guy, right? It's pretty clear at this point.
Or Clark. Clark's the guy.
I'm sorry, Clark. Yes. I'm always getting Bland and Clark.
Yeah, I know. It's those day 3 rookies. We'll talk about that later this week. But we want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you would download the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Check us out over on YouTube. You can follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy Victory Monday, and we'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.